Good morning. So my name is Sandra Haltom. I am with Lone Star Legal Aid's Military and Veterans Unit. My co-host today is William Gwynn, also with our Military and Veterans Unit. Before we get started on today's presentation, I just wanted to let you know that this presentation is intended to and does not represent or replace legal advice. If you need legal advice or assistance, 1-800-733-8394, www.lonestarlegal.org for more information on legal assistance. Okay, so thank you all for joining us. Today, we are going to talk about benefits that are for the veteran's surviving spouse or dependents that occur after the veteran has passed away. So the first thing we're going to do is define what is a spouse, because that can be a little squishy. So the VA recognizes a veteran's marriage under the law of the place where at least one of the parties resided at the time that they were married. So, that includes common law marriage. This can be where also when the claimant became eligible for benefits, including same-sex marriages, would count as well. And generally, the VA is going to accept a she is married as sufficient evidence to support a claim for any sort of marriage-related spousal benefit. So now let's talk about dependency and indemnity compensation. Dependency and indemnity compensation, spouse, child, parent of a service member, the survivor of a veteran who died from a service, then you may be able to get a tax-free monetary benefit called VA dependency and indemnity compensation, which is a lot of words. So a lot of times we just refer to it as DIC. So if you're the surviving spouse or child, the form you need is VA form 21P-534EZ. If you're the surviving parent, there's a different form called 21P-535. And you can find those on the VA's website, so you don't have to remember those numbers. You can just log on to the VA website and type it in the chat or the search bar, and you should be able to find them. Just know that there's different ones for surviving spouses and children versus surviving parents. So let's talk a little bit more about eligibility. For spouses, one of these things must be true. You must have married the veteran or service member before January 1st of 1957, or married the veteran or service member within 15 years of their discharge from the period during which the qualifying illness or injury started or got worse, which means there's service-connected injury or illness, or member for at least 1 year, or you had a child with the veteran or service member, aren't currently remarried, and either lived with the veteran or service member without a break until their death, or if you were separated, you weren't at fault for the separation. So the evidence that you would have to submit if you were a spouse is you'll need to show evidence that one of these descriptions is true for the veteran or service member. That the service member died while on active duty for training, or inactive duty training, or that the veteran died from a service-connected illness or injury, or the veteran didn't die from a service-connected illness or injury, but was eligible to receive VA compensation for a service-connected disability rated as totally disabling for a specific period of time. If the veteran's eligibility was due to a rating of total disability, they must have had this rating for at least 10 years before their death, or since their release from active duty, and for at least 5 years immediately before their death, or for at least 1 year before their death, if they were a former September 30th, 1999. So if you're submitting an application on this is a little different. So if you're submitting evidence on behalf of a child of a veteran, you'll also need to provide evidence showing that one of the descriptions is true for the veteran or service member. And that evidence may include documents like military service records, doctor's reports, and medical test reports. So all of the following things must be true as the child: that you aren't married, aren't including on the surviving spouse's compensation, which we talked about before, and are under the age of 18 or are under the age of 23 and are still attending school. So that's DIC. Let's talk about some other survivors' benefits. Number one, healthcare. That's another valuable benefit that's available to eligible survivors. So there's different kinds of healthcare benefits available. There's the Civilian Health and Medical Program of the Department of Veterans Affairs, also known as CHAMP-VA. There's the Camp Lejeune Family Member Program. Children of Women Vietnam Veterans Healthcare Benefits, also known as CWVP. Healthcare Benefits Program, or SBHCBP. So let's talk about each of these in turn. So CHAMP to eligible surviving spouses and children, if at least one of these is true. If you're the surviving spouse or child of a veteran who died, service-related disability, or the surviving spouse veteran who was rated permanently and totally disabled from their service-connected disability when they died, or the surviving spouse of child or child of a service member who died in the line of duty as long as it was not due to misconduct. So the Camp Lejeune benefits are used for family members of veterans that lived or served at U.S. Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune in North Carolina between August 1st of 1953 and December 31st of 1987. These veterans and their family members were potentially exposed to hazardous drinking water, and that's one of the reasons that they are eligible for this type of healthcare program. So surviving spouses and children can get reimbursed for certain out-of-pocket expenses for healthcare costs. This benefit applies to 15 specific illnesses and medical conditions like cancer, infertility, and miscarriage, as well as certain others. If you'd like more information on these specific medical conditions, you can find those on the VA. The Children of Women Vietnam available to certain individuals to provide targeted health benefits applied to children with certain birth defects born to females. So it's a very narrow criteria for this benefit. It covers the birth defect and associated medical conditions. Children with Vietnam vet mothers who were conceived after February 28th of 1961 and before May 7th, 1975, who have one of the covered birth defects are eligible for the program. The Spina Bifida Healthcare Program is for children of Vietnam vets with spina bifida, and they may receive monetary allowances, vocational training, or rehabilitation. Another thing that is available to surviving spouses and children of veterans is education benefits. Two key education programs that are available to spouses and children are the Frye Scholarship and the Survivors and Dependents Educational Assistance Program. The Frye Scholarship is for people who are the child of an active duty service member who died in the line of duty on or after September 11th, 2001. So this is basically for post 9/11 vets, spouses, and children. You can be married or unmarried, and if you turn 18 or graduate before January 2013, you can get a Frye Scholarship until you're 33 years old. If you turn 18 or graduate from high school after January 1st, 2013, you can get a Frye Scholarship at any age over 18 or after you graduate, whichever comes first. The DEA program, or Survivors and Dependents Education Assistance, is for dependents of veterans who are permanently and totally disabled due to a service-related condition. Then you're eligible for this specific education and job training opportunity through the DEA program. It's also available to dependents of veterans who died while on active duty or from a service-related condition. Dependent children must be between the ages of 18 and 26. If the child is over 18 and using DEA, he or she will not be eligible to also receive DIC compensation payments from the VA. About DIC earlier. So if you're considering one or the other, be careful that you look at them carefully before deciding which one. Just here, you can't get both. Spouses, we receive both DEA and DIC payments. So GI Bill benefits, which a lot of people are familiar with, can be transferred. Active duty personnel who are eligible for the post 9/11 GI Bill may be able to transfer the full 36 months or any unused education benefits to their spouse, children, or a combination of the two. So the eligibility criteria you must meet to transfer benefits includes at least 6 years of military service at the time of the Department of Defense's approval for a benefits transfer, and to agree to an additional 4 years of service. You have at least 10 years of military service at the time of DoD's approval, be precluded from serving that additional 4 years due to a standard policy set forth by your particular service branch or the DoD or by statute, but agree to serve for the maximum amount of time allowed by whatever policy or statute applies. The transfer request must be submitted in courses. So let's talk for a minute about survivor's pension. Survivor's pension is available during wartime. It's a monthly payment to surviving spouses with moms who have not remarried. The benefit is dependent children of wartime veterans. So the veteran has to have at least one of these be true. So either they entered active duty on or before September 7th, 1980, and served at least 90 days on active military service with at least 1 day during a covered wartime period, and we'll talk about what those are here in a moment, or that they entered active duty after September 7th, 1980, and served at least 24 months or the full period for which they were called or ordered to active duty, with some exceptions, with at least 1 day during the covered wartime period, or they were an officer and started on active duty after October 16th, 1981, and hadn't previously served on active duty for at least 24 months. So what is covered wartime period? So the covered wartime periods are World War II, December 7th, 1941 to December 31st, 19. The Korean conflict, June 27th, 1950 to January 31st, 1955. Vietnam War, February 28th, 1961 to May 7th, 1975. In the Republic of Vietnam during that period, or August 5th, 1964 to May 7th, 1975. And then the Gulf War, which is August 2nd, 1990 through a future date yet to be set by law or presidential decree. We may be seeing that happen sometime soon. And then also the post 9/11 conflict, which obviously is anything after of 2001. What are dependent children? So at least one of those are under 18 or under 23 and attending a VA approved school. So not just a school, but a VA approved school, or you're unable to care for yourself due to a disability that happened before you turned 18. The amount of the pension is set each year by Congress, and eligibility is determined by a complex calculation. that takes into account net worth as well as various kinds of income and expenses. Bottom line, this is for people who meet certain income eligibility requirements. It's not just for everyone. So those who are homebound or require assistance for a base may qualify for an additional payment. Let's talk about burial benefits. So this applies to veterans and their spouses and dependents. All of those people can be buried in one of the 136 national cemeteries maintained by the VA. Burial benefits for veterans in these cemeteries include opening and closing of the grave, perpetual care, a government headstone or marker, a burial flag, and a presidential memorial certificate at no cost to the family. Burial benefits available for spouses and dependents buried in a national cemetery include burial with the veteran, perpetual care of the gravesite, and the spouse or dependent's names and dates of birth and death inscribed in the veteran's headstone at no additional cost to the family. Eligible spouses and dependents may be buried in a VA national cemetery, even if the veteran themselves is not buried there. So in order to be eligible, the veteran must not have received a dishonorable discharge when they separated from the military, or the spouse or dependent child of a service member or veteran who was not dishonorably discharged if the service member or veteran has already passed, the adult dependent child of a service member or a veteran married. When veterans, the government provides a headstone or marker, flag, and a PMC. May pay for some of the burial and funeral expenses. Many states have state veteran cemeteries, which may have residency requirements that the national cemeteries do not have. So that's something to look into as you're doing your estate planning. And speaking of estate planning, it is always a good idea to make a will and other estate planning documents. And when you're doing so, think of all of these benefits to which you as a veteran or your spouse or dependent might be eligible and factor this into your estate planning. And of course, if you would like to apply for services for help getting any of these benefits or for estate planning services, you can contact the Lone Star Legal Aid Military and Veterans Unit at 844-400-8387. You can email us at vethelp@lonestarlegal.org, or you can go to our website at www.lonestarlegal.org. We'd also like to thank our wonderful grant sponsors who make all of this work possible. LSC, the Texas Access to Justice Foundation, the Bob Woodruff Foundation, and Commission. And now I would like to ask if there are any questions or if my co-host William Wynn had what I've already told you or clarify anything that may have been confusing.
The only thing I had was just that post 9/11 does fall under the Gulf War period of service, so there's not two separate delineations there. It's just been ongoing since October 2nd of 1990. Other than that, everything was presented great and looks good to me.
Do we have any questions from our audience members? All right, it doesn't look like we have any questions at this time. So again, if you would like to apply for services, even if you're not sure if you qualify for one of these programs, but you'd just like a benefits checkup to see if you qualify for one of these services or possibly for another type of veterans benefit that you're unsure of, we can assist you with that. If you'll just give us a call, shoot us an email, or fill out an online application. Thanks so much. Have a great rest